Hey, BTR 1389 here. I'm going to do another review slash history lesson on a particular firearm, and today we're going to be looking at the pistol Parabellum, or as most people know it as, the Luger. First off, let's do a safety check. No round in the chamber, no magazine in the gun, and both magazines are empty. First, we'll run through the history behind the design of this pistol. So it all started when a man named Hugo Borchardt developed a self-loading semi-automatic pistol called the Borchardt C93. It used a toggle action that was very similar to the one used in the Maxim machine gun. An example of a toggle action is actually the Luger right here, and it's this bent arm configuration. Ludwig Lowen Company, which would later become Deutsche Waffen- und Munitionsfabriken, or DWM, produced this very expensive and complicated pistol. There were only a few thousand of the C93s produced. Later, DWM asked an engineer in the company by the name of Georg Luger to improve upon the design of the C93. He was originally supposed to work with Hugo Borchardt himself, but Borchardt didn't want to be a part of it. He just wanted to have things done the way he wanted them done. So Luger set out to make the better weapon himself. And in 1898, he had the designs for what he called the pistol Parabellum. It came in one caliber, and that was 7.65 by 22, or 30 Luger, as it's known nowadays. DWM began production in 1900 when the Swiss Army tested and eventually adopted the pistol as its main sidearm. This was huge because it was the first semi-automatic pistol to be adopted by any military anywhere. In 1901, the U.S. military would acquire 1,000 of them to test with military officers. The officers had many complaints about the pistols, but the number one complaint was that the caliber was too small. This complaint was pretty unanimous with all militaries that were testing it, so Luger designed a new caliber that was taking the original case design of the 30 Luger, stretching the walls so there was no shoulder, so it could accept a larger bullet. And what he got was the 9mm Luger round. It's probably the most common pistol round nowadays. This design was perfect for the Luger because all you had to do was switch out the barrel. If you had a 9mm barrel, you could fit it to a 7.65 Luger like this one, and it would fire flawlessly. They had the same size rim, and the only part you needed to replace was the barrel, making it easier for manufacturing. DWM did not cease production of the 7.65mm Luger, though. They just started making both of them. A few other calibers were made, such as 32 ACP, 380 ACP, and 45 ACP. But there were only 2 or 3 of each made ever. In 1907, the U.S. government would again look for a new semi-automatic pistol for the military, but they wanted it in 45 ACP. So Luger would enter the contest along with 9 other pistol makers, including Colt with their famous Colt 45 Auto. DWM made 2 45 Lugers and sent Georg Luger himself to oversee the tests. In the end, the U.S. government would adopt the Colt 45. They said the Luger was too complicated and it was prone to jamming. But most likely, they chose the Colt 45 because it was domestically produced and it was produced by a known manufacturer of high-quality guns. In 1908, the German Army would make the Luger its official sidearm. This started a chain reaction of adoptions by dozens of other countries. The biggest thing that solidified the Luger as a legendary weapon, though, was probably World War I. Because there were so many issued to German officers, when the war ended, many American GIs brought back captured Lugers, and they loved them. Lugers were made in many countries, including the U.S., and had hundreds of variants that ranged from 3 7/8 inch barrels like this one, all the way up to 8-inch barrels. And some had grip safeties, some had lugs right here for attaching to stock, and there was even a carbine version. Official production halted in 1948. But by that time, there were many manufacturers, including DWM, Mauser, Erfurt, and many more. A company called Stoeger did make a .22 long rifle version in the 60s, and then a full-size version in the 80s, but they've since halted production. The only other producer of Lugers since 1948 was by a gun restoration expert named Mike Kraus, who owns a gun shop in San Mateo, California called Krausworks. It's actually not far from me. I've bought a few things from them, including this magazine and my Mosin Nagant. Mike Krauss produced 145 caliber Lugers in 1998, and they were the exact specifications of the two that existed that were meant for the U.S. government during the tests in 1907. And they each sold for $15,000. In 1999, Mike Krauss again reproduced another Luger. This time it was the 32 caliber Luger, to the exact specs of the known 32 caliber Lugers that existed. And those sold for $12,500. All right, let's talk about this gun. I bought it last year, in 2011, and it is a 30 Luger version. It is not the 9mm version. After a ton of research, I believe it is a 1920 commercial Luger. I don't know the exact date of manufacture because serial numbers are really wacky and it's really hard to tell. I do know that it was made somewhere between 1920 and 1939. And the reason I know that is because this is definitely a 1920 commercial Luger, so it must have been made after that. And it also has a little symbol right here called the Crown N, and that was only used before 1939. After that, there was a symbol called the Eagle N, and it's a proofing mark that German companies use in the proofing house in Ulm to show that this was fired with an overpressure cartridge, and to make sure it's safe and such. The N stands for nitrocellulose, and which nitrocellulose is modern-day smokeless powder and not black powder. It weighs about 31 ounces. It has a 3 7/8 inch barrel, but you can buy them in a number of different barrel sizes. There's tons of them. This one was made by DWM in Germany, and it came with this one magazine. I don't use this magazine anymore. It's very old. The wood part right here has a small crack in it, so I don't want to put any rounds in it to put pressure on that. So we just went ahead and bought this new one, which is an Italian-made magazine with a plastic bottom and more pins in it to make sure everything's more sturdy. So I use that when I'm actually firing it. Now, these are single stack 8-round magazines, but you can buy drum magazines that extend past the bottom. They're a little more rare, though, and they're kind of hard to come by. Overall, this gun is amazing. It's super accurate, and it's not just because the entire thing is extremely well made. I mean, everything's milled on it, and all the parts are precisely put together. It's not a cheaply made gun, but it's also because of the way it's built. This design, this 55-degree angle from the barrel to the grip, allows it to sit in your hand perfectly. If you point, you'll shoot where you're pointing. You may notice that this looks like another type of gun, the Ruger, the Mark series of Ruger. Like this is a Ruger Mark III, but the Mark I and Mark II look exactly the same, virtually the same. And Bill Ruger, when he was making these, he liked the design of the Luger so much that he put the same 55-degree angle on it. And this is also a dream to shoot. It's just wonderful the way that feels in your hand. And the only way I can describe it to you accurately is if you actually hold it. There's no other comparison. The trigger pull is extremely smooth. I think it's about 6 or 7 pounds. I'm not really sure. The recoil is extremely manageable. I've had no problem with recoil. It doesn't hop up any more than usual. Now, this is with the 30 Luger and not with the 9mm one. But I'd imagine that the 9mm Luger would be a little more, would have a little more recoil, just because the 9mm round is a little larger and it has a little more powder behind it. Now, these are not the original grips. I don't know where those are. Most Lugers come with walnut grips. I had to make these, and I'm actually not even done with this side yet because I've been a little bit lazy. But when we got it, it came with these faux stag Franzite grips. They are terrible. They're not good feeling, they're not comfortable, and they don't even fit. So I'm never going to use them again. And now for a few of the features. First off, the safety. It has an external safety. You put that down, and it shows a little word right there, and that says gesichert, which means safety, or safe in German. And if you can tell right there, there's a little piece of metal that comes up, and that just blocks this little leaf spring right here from being pulled out when the trigger is pulled, preventing it from releasing the striker and hitting around. It's not the best safety. I mean, it's really old, so you gotta give credit for the time, but if you were to drop this with a round in the chamber, it still might slam fire. Another feature is if you insert an empty magazine, you can lock the slide back. This does not have an external slide catch, unfortunately, but it's because it's toggle fire, and I don't know how they do that. Also, right here, there's a little tiny thing that pops up when there's a round in the chamber, and it's called a loaded chamber indicator. And it says geladen on it, which means loaded in German. That's a nice feature, especially for the time when these were first made. The sights are pretty standard. Let's see if I can get them in there. It's just, let's see. It's just a little V notch for the rear sight. Nothing spectacular. Non-adjustable. The front sight technically is adjustable with windage, but this one's already sighted in, so I wouldn't bother with it. Now, one of the cool things that most Lugers have, actually I believe all of them have, I haven't been able to see one that doesn't have it, is this right here. And this is a lug that's used to attach a stock to, if you happen to have a stock. Unfortunately, this one was ground down a long time ago, so I'll never be able to put a stock on there, which is sad, but what are you going to do? Some also had grip safeties. This one does not, because 1920 commercial Lugers didn't have that feature, but it basically did the same thing as this. If your hand wasn't on it, this would automatically go down, and this would automatically be up, I'm sorry. And when you squeeze the trigger, it would pop down. It works exactly like a 1911 grip safety. In terms of ammo, since this one is a .30 Luger, it's a little hard to find ammo, and it's hard to find it cheap. Every once in a while, I can find online 50 rounds for about $25, but only from a company called Fiocchi. They're an Italian-based company, and so far I've had good. I mean, it's good ammunition, but I've only been able to find two types, and that's Full Metal Jacket and Jacketed Soft Point. Now with Full Metal Jacket, I've never had any problems with it. No failure to feeds, nothing. I mean, granted, I've only fired 100 rounds about, but I've never had any problems with this. Now with the Jacketed Soft Point, because of the lead tip, I did have a few failure to feeds, which could be a problem, and it got stuck in the magazine sometime. It wasn't very nice. So I don't recommend shooting anything other than Full Metal Jacket out of these. All right, now let's do a field strip. First off, you want to make sure that the gun is not loaded. There's no round in the chamber. It is decocked, and the safety is off. Once you do that, there's a few ways you can start. I'm going to do it with my hand because I have larger hands, and I'm able to reach this little lever with my thumb. If you can't reach it because you have smaller hands, just use a padded table and just force it down like that. But I'm going to do it this way for the sake of the video. So you're going to push all the way back, and you don't have to worry about being gentle. It's a gun. It can take the abuse. And then you want to use your thumb and push that down. You can use your other thumb if you really want to. Once you do that, take this little piece off, and you can set that aside. Then you want to take the slide and slide that off, set the frame aside, and then you have this, the inner and outer slides. The next step is to take this pin out, and the easiest way to do that is to put the left side of the slide down, and that pin should just fall out like that. If it doesn't, try tapping it with a wooden dowel and a hammer, just very gently. You don't want to hurt anything. If it doesn't fall out really easily even after tapping, it's probably because it is still cocked. And if you want to decock it, you just push this right here and it will fire it, but I don't recommend doing that. Once that's out, you can set that aside. And the next step, you want to take your left hand, hold this with your left hand, push down this little part right here with your thumb, take this, pull back, and it should just pop right out. And there you have it. Fully field stripped Luger. Pretty easy, nothing much to it. To put it back together, you just do everything in the exact reverse order. So you take the slide, you want to push this button down right here. You don't have to, but this just makes it easier to slide back in. I do it because it's easier. And you want to make sure that it's faced up in the correct fashion. It won't work if you try to slide it in that way. Slide it in, lift that up, push this down, and slide it all the way forward into battery. You want to make sure that it's slid all the way forward. Now, there's another thing you must make sure. This pin right here, there's a tiny little pin, must be in there. It might slide out like it actually just did on me. Make sure that's in there or this will not function properly and you'll break the gun. Once that's in, you need to put this pin back in on the left side, and it can only go in one way. And just tap it in. If not, just realign that. Now here's the most difficult part. This little bar right here must be up all the way. So you want to remount the slide on the frame. Do it pretty slowly. And once you get back to about here, you can let that drop. Now that little bar must fall into that hole in front of this fork, but behind the back of the magazine. And it must slide in there. Once that happens, you can slide this all the way back. And it should stop right there. If it keeps going, take off the slide and retry again. Once you do that, take this piece again. There's a little lip right here. That has to go underneath a little lip on the frame. Now take your thumb, your right thumb, place it over that, and either do it like this or with your hand, and push again, bringing that lever back up. Once that happens, you have a completely reassembled Luger. Check to make sure it functions, everything works, and there you go. You can find Lugers anywhere from prices ranging from $400 to $100,000 and beyond. I mean, if you can think about a style, it probably exists. I mean, there's gold-plated ones with engraving. There's everything. Long barrel, short barrel, with stock. There's carbine versions. There's so many different types and so many different price ranges. If you have the money and you are able to find a quality one, I highly recommend getting one. They're great, great, great guns. They're beautiful. They're very unique. You'll always get heads to turn when you go to the range. They are super accurate, and they're actually really fun to shoot. If you can find a 9mm one, the rounds are plentiful too. 30 Luger, rarer, a little more expensive, but still fun. If there is anything that I missed or I was wrong about, please just PM me or put it in the comments. I don't want to be wrong about anything. I want these just to be purely for education value. I want all that to be correct. I don't want to have any mistakes. So please tell me if you see anything that was wrong, anything like that. Thanks for watching.